Eric Malka, welcome, my friend. How are you doing?
Hi, Joel. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm fantastic. Let me tell everybody who you are. Eric Malka is the co-founder of the Art of Shaving. Remember those stores all over the country? He's also managing partner of Strategic Brand Investments. He's a serial entrepreneur, an investor, a coach, author, and natural health advocate. Under his leadership as CEO, Eric is credited for pioneering the luxury men's grooming and barbering industry. His new book, On the Razor's Edge, which just got published August 20th of 2024. In it, Eric details his rags to riches story while sharing the many business and life lessons he acquired along the way. As an investor and advisor, he shares insights that are designed to empower tomorrow's entrepreneur and increase the odds of success. So Eric, in full disclosure, is a friend of mine. So I actually know a lot more things that'll probably be released here in this talk, but I'm sure we'll get to some of those juicy ones. Eric, what is it about shaving? Did you want to shave as a little kid and you got this major fascination because you're one of the biggest names in the shaving world?
No, actually, as you can tell from my beard, and I think you're in the same spirit. Shaving is not my favorite thing to do. It's funny because when I was 5 years old, my mother left me in the bath for just 2 seconds to grab a towel, and I lunged at my father's safety razors and put it to my cheek. I still have traces of that blade to this day, but no, shaving is not my favorite activity. But it was a huge opportunity that presented itself in my youth, and you know that became my life.
So we're going to talk about different things, and we definitely want to hear your story. You presented it maybe a year ago to the Brotherhood group, and obviously this is that they can listen to this, but more people will hear this one. Um, so we do want to hear about the story. You built the art of shaving, but how much of it, before you tell us that story, how much of it was your brilliance and how much of it was kind of luck? Was any of it luck?
Yeah, it was my luck and my wife's brilliance. I think that was the combination.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. All right. So it started out, where on the map did you start out and what was life like early on?
Well, how far back do you want me to go? I
On
mean,
the beginning.
I'm like you. I'm a first generation American. Came to this country when I was 17 years old, with $100 in my pocket. Took a Greyhound bus from Montreal to New York City, and 24 years later, I sold my company to Fortune 25. So there's a bunch of stories in in
Yeah,
there.
sold the
You know,
company to Proctor and Gamble. They bought the whole business. You stayed on for a little while and helped manage it for a year or so.
yeah, I was contractually obligated to stay on for 2 years. It was something that became a real gift in my life because being able to join that company and learn their incredible disciplines in marketing and branding work was a real gift for me as an entrepreneur. I was shooting from the hips to really round out some of my experience. To be involved with them for 2 years was really a great thing.
I've heard that we have some friends in common that have sold companies to big players, and they always say the same thing because like you said, it's normal for us to kind of go with our feeling and our limited experience as one individual. But when you go with these big companies, in your case, Procter and Gamble, they do everything next level, right?
Not everything, actually. The way senior management people described themselves and their experience with founders, entrepreneurs like me, is that um, the combination of their disciplined approach to business and our ability to be creative thinkers and nimble as entrepreneurs, those two together is a lethal combination. One without the other is incomplete. So it
Mm.
was really interesting to round out a little bit. Not that I'm Procter and Gamble level by any means, but
But
I
you
had
brought
a chance.
something. You brought something that they liked, that they wanted, and that they saw. It's nice to have those deep pockets, though. Procter and Gamble.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're always bootstrapping as entrepreneurs, right? Even when we grow our companies to 50 million or so, we're still bootstrapping. or getting investors. But yeah, having deep pockets made a big difference in my ability to execute the art of shaving on a different level after the acquisition.
Yeah.
And also not having the stress, you know, I talk about this in my book. CEOs and founder entrepreneurs have a tremendous amount of stress when they're navigating. Um, and as you know, stress causes cognitive impairment. And that's not what you want when you're trying to build a company. So it was interesting to see how I could operate without all that on my shoulders.
It causes cognitive impairment. Stress does. It also causes disease, right? If you're in a
Causes
state of
disease.
high
Don't get
cortisol
me.
level for years,
Oh yeah,
not good.
stress is bad. Stress is bad,
Yeah. All right.
for
So,
sure.
but you came to the U.S., New York, from Montreal. Where were you before? Where'd you start out?
So I was born in Casablanca, Morocco. I'm part of a very small group of Jewish people from North Africa. We were about, I think, at the height of our people in Morocco, we were about 15% of the population there, about 300,000 of us. And between the 60s and 70s, we basically, even the 50s to 70s, we all migrated away from Morocco and other North African countries.
What was
Not
happening?
because,
What was happening to Jews at that time in Morocco?
well, Morocco in 1956 became a sovereign country. The king of Morocco was brought back. And this is 10 years after the Holocaust was over. So we started feeling very uncomfortable. We were no longer under French um, government rule. And we were concerned that we would become persecuted. We were not persecuted at any time, but we decided to leave our homeland behind. Countries like Tunisia and Egypt was different. They were persecuted. They were kicked out of the country. But in Morocco, we were never treated the wrong way. On the contrary, during the Second World War, the King of Morocco protected the Jews against the Nazis. So it was just an exodus, a willing, exodus of our people. That's where I come from. And, our people have migrated to Israel or France or Quebec. My family decided to go to Montreal, where they settled and where I froze my nuts off for about 9 years before before I fled to New York. New York felt like the Caribbean after Montreal.
And then you actually ended up for a little while in the Caribbean, right?
And then I moved to Puerto Rico. Exactly. So,
You were there, what,
um,
5 years?
being wealthy in New York is hard enough. So being poor is a tremendously horrible situation. I had very little prospects there. Um, it was a a great experience to spend, 2 years in New York City, but the opportunity came about for me to go to Puerto Rico, and it was in the Caribbean. I knew nothing about it, but I knew it was in the Caribbean, so I said, "Yeah, sign me up, sunshine."
Yeah. So these were jobs, right? In New York, you were just working. In Puerto Rico, you hadn't started your business yet, right?
No, I was actually an illegal alien in New York. I arrived undocumented. I think we don't call it that anymore. That's how we used to call ourselves back then. But now, I was an undocumented immigrant for about 6 years, 2 years in New York City and 4 years in Puerto Rico until I got my green card. And that's what really led me to become an entrepreneur. I couldn't really get a job in Puerto Rico, but I could actually start a company and operate it and take profits from it. So that's how I made a living.
Yeah, it's always a when you're not when you're not set up for success as an employee, you've got no other option. You've got to become an
No plan B,
entrepreneur.
baby.
Yeah, that's
No plan B. That's my motto.
no plan B. That's right. All right, so we're gonna get into it and how you built that company and about your book and all of that. But what if you wouldn't have started the art of shaving? What if you would have gotten an immediate green card and you would have gotten a good job? Where would you be today?
Well, I talk about this in the book. I mean, if my life was a little bit easier growing up, I wouldn't be here today talking to you about this. right? It's through adversity that either, adversity, what I call a chip on our shoulder. I think you can relate to this. A chip on our shoulder is something that can be a ball and chain, or it could be a driver for growth. And depending on your personality and your mindset, in my case, it became an obsession for success. Nothing was going to stand in my way of proving the world wrong about me, and that chip on on my shoulder was that catalyst. So if my life had been a little bit easier, not that it was horrible, right? I know people had it so much worse than I ever did, but in my experience, my life experiences have um, challenged me to seek a better life. And like many people, I came to America looking for a better life.
So if we could go back to
Yeah.
those moments when you were in that position, when you were a young guy and you said, man, I don't have it all together financially, I'm poor. Uh, what was it really like in that moment? What are you thinking about? You get up in the morning, what's going on in your head? Because
It's
it's
all
easy to say,
unconscious. It's all unconscious, but I know what I was thinking unconsciously back then. My family moved to Montreal we lived a beautiful life in Morocco. I mean, we were blessed there. It was Shangri-La, and all of a sudden I moved to Canada, which is, considered one of the happiest countries in the world. But for a 10-year-old, it's a shock. It's a trauma. Winters, culture shocks, new schools. Your parents are trying to figure out their lives, so you don't get as much attention. My father lost his job when I was about 14, and we became poor. So I think unconsciously, I never wanted that experience in my life, and definitely not for my children. Um, I quit school. I was not academically gifted. So that became a stigma in my community. My girlfriend was studying to become a doctor. So, everybody was going to college, and I was dropping out right after high school. My girlfriend's family forced her to break up with me because I wasn't good enough. All these things culminated to creating a chip on my shoulder that became the words, I'm going to prove the world wrong. And to me, that is the most powerful driver for an entrepreneur. We talk about purpose, and we talk about missions, and making money, and all the things that can be motivators, but the true motivator is the one we never talk about, the one that is burning in our belly, that wants us to prove something to ourselves and to the world.
did you ever write a letter to the girlfriend's parents who made you
No,
break
not at
up?
all. Not at all. No, none. I have no ill feelings, nor am I trying to, you know, I'm hoping they all have a beautiful life. Everything happens for a reason, my friend. If she hadn't broke up with me, I would still be, shoveling snow to get my car out of the garage.
Yeah.
I think months after that breakup, I left to New York. Sometimes it's like being fired from a job you hate, and you want to be an entrepreneur, and you don't have the courage to quit, but when you get fired is when you really make that leap forward.
That's right. They do a huge favor for you. So I'm not as good a man as you. I wrote that letter to an ex-girlfriend's parents after, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years, but it wasn't a, haha, I told you so.
Yeah.
It was a thank you for motivating
Thank you.
me. And here's where I've reached today. Here's what and her dad's a very successful entrepreneur. And I said, here's where my income is today. And I grew it. I never thought I'd do this. You're the first successful guy I ever met. It felt good to write that. I honestly don't know if he read it. I mailed it to his company at his name, but confidential
I
on the.
think that's less important, right?
Yeah,
Whether they
writing
read
it,
it.
writing it was
I'm
amazing.
notoriously flawed at not looking in the rearview mirror. I'm just always, now I'm focused every day on trying to be present right now, because I was always forward looking, and that can be also a problem. But I've reached a place in my life where I no longer need to worry about tomorrow, and really being present. But I was always notorious about turning the page and never looking back. I'm talking about being 17 years old. So this was not a very important
Sure.
relationship. it was puppy love.
Yep.
It was just one of the drivers that made me. Also, I didn't have a present father. My father was not a big figure in my life. So all these things really became a recipe for turbocharging my ambitions.
Yep. So let's talk about your story. You started a little store somewhere in Manhattan, right? How'd that start?
Yeah, I think it was my fourth business, and the previous business before the art of shaving is where I failed miserably and lost all the money I had made up to that point. So I was broke, insecure about my prospects of ever achieving my lofty ambitions. And my wife, girlfriend at the time, and I moved to New York City, looking for opportunities. And I started working in the industry by coincidence. Um, and Miriam and I had the idea to open a small shop. She was also illegal at the time and wanted to do something. And I thought maybe, we can open a little shop and you can operate the shop. And I was so traumatized by my last major failure that I didn't want to start a big business again. I wanted to start something tiny. I had no money anyways. All I had was a car that I had purchased a few years before and that had equity in it. We sold that car for $12,000. And with that money, we miraculously opened a small shop on the Upper East Side of Manhattan in a location that nobody ever wanted. Seven businesses failed in that locations before us, so
Wow.
no wonder they gave it to us at a decent rate without checking credit references. I thought I had made a good impression. Then I found out it was, you have to be desperate to take that store.
You were Plan Z for them.
Plan Z, exactly.
And so when you opened that up, you were not trying to open an empire. You were opening a small shop. Did you ever envision that, yeah, this is going to become something huge and a
No, not at all.
household name? No.
No, I was so insecure. I mean, after my last failure, I thought I sucked at business. I thought I was never going to achieve my goals. And that's when I developed one of my core philosophies of entrepreneurial success, which is to think big and start small. That really became my philosophy in business to really, you know, I built a shaving empire from opening a tiny little store selling other people's merchandise for $12,000. So it's not how you start. It's really how big your vision is. Um, and that's what we did through a little bit of luck, a little bit of hard work, and good instincts and some talent.
You told me once, I think we were at lunch, and you told me about a New York Times, I think it was a New York Times article or
Yeah,
an op-ed piece, something was written. Tell us
yeah,
about
yeah. Yeah, about 6 months after we opened our tiny little shop, um, we had the barber who was employed by the brand we sold in our store from England, was coming to the United States to do a barber event at Bergdorf Goodman in New York City, who also sold the same brand we did. So I had befriended the barber and I asked him if he would be willing to do an event in our tiny little shop on 62nd Street. He graciously agreed. And we sent out 400 postcards to our mailing list at the time, expressing that we had invited the barber to the Prime Minister of England, which was the truth, and um, we got 100 requests for appointments. So we asked him to extend the event to 3 days, which he did, and the postcard reached a young publicist who came to see us. We couldn't afford to hire her, so she agreed to do it for free and promoted the event in the press, and we received tremendous amount of press for the event. But the big one was the New York Times article, who asked for an exclusive before anybody else covered it. And believe it or not, the day before Miriam and I were married at City Hall, the New York Times article came out. It was about two-page in the Metro section of the Sunday Times, which in 1997
That was
was a
it.
big deal. That was a
Yeah.
big deal. You're talking about you can't get bigger than that as far as going viral in those days. And the next morning, went about our business. We were to get married in the morning because of immigration rules coming in about 10 days after that. So we had to rush to get married. Little, ceremony at the mayor's office, and went back to the store. We're very disciplined. We said we have to open the store at 10 a.m. on Monday morning, even though we don't expect to do more than a couple of $100 in sales. So, this is our business and we have to be open for business. When we arrived at the store, we had a line of people waiting there, and the phone was ringing off the hook. So the business blew up. Business blew up. We did about a month's business every day for 2 3 months. And that gave us the funding to open a much bigger location on Madison Avenue and to start creating our own brand of products.
What
So
if,
the New York Times is, I'm a subscriber.
yeah. Well, but there's more than just the New York Times. There are events and actions that led up to that New
That's right.
York Times article. What if you had not reached out to that barber? What if you have not convinced him and befriended him?
Well, that's what I talk about also in the book is luck favors the prepared, right? The fish doesn't jump on your boat, sort of way. And basically it's we've always had a go-getter attitude. We were young, we were hungry, we were hustlers. And we pulled the trigger before we thought about it. So yeah, I immediately called a barber, but I had a store that was literally 200 square feet. You couldn't fit a barber in there. We didn't have a barber chair. We went to local antique stores and found a beautiful antique barber chair, but it was broken. It wouldn't recline, it would recline flat because it didn't have hydraulics. We bought it anyways. We used a broomstick to hold the back of the barber chair, and we had to make sure the customer didn't see it. So it was kind of a funny act to put the broomstick to hold the barber in place to shave him. But these are things, creating that postcard and really romanticizing the fact that that barber was going to Downing Street on a monthly basis to shave the prime minister. And he was also doing the hair of a remote, obscure member of the royal family. So we milked it. I mean, you're absolutely right. Luck did not just land on our lap. We did a lot of things to make that happen.
So, yeah, you had to talk to that barber, build a relationship, reach out, send those postcards. If any of those one of those were not done, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
No, we could have been. I could have said to myself, "Oh, he'll never do an event in our little store. Oh, we don't have a barber chair. Oh, we don't have enough space." Or, I could have given myself 1,000 excuses not to do any of the things I've done in my life. But, I've always been a go-getter. I think I think you're the same way. I think we've had conversations where you had to cut them short because you wanted to execute on some of the ideas that came up.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
You
in the
just
middle of,
bolt it out,
yeah, you gave
bolt
me a
it out the
great
door.
idea. We were at lunch. You gave me a great idea. And I go, dude, I just can't anymore. I got to go. I'm going to go do this. And it was a great idea. And I went to go execute on it. And guess what? If it wasn't the right idea, it's okay, but you got it out of the
It's
way.
okay.
I know it's not the
It's
one.
a mindset.
Yep.
It's a growth mindset. It's a
So what
mindset
if that
of
barber
an
chair
open mind.
wasn't perfect? It didn't recline properly, and you said, "I'm not going to put I'm not going to put a stick and a drape over it. I know I need it to be perfect." Talk to me about those guys out there, or those girls who need it to be perfect, and they don't take that step until it's perfect. What's flawed
Well,
with that?
there's a couple of. Well, I think it's either a mindset issue. You're not open-minded to the possibility. That means your fixed mindset doesn't allow you to push forward. It could also be that you're comfortable. You have a comfortable situation. and you're not going out of that comfort zone, right? Maybe you have a great job. If I had a great job, as we talked about earlier, I wouldn't have started any of my companies, so I think
Good thing no one wanted to pay Eric Malka $80,000 back in the 90s, huh?
that's right. And also, I think people wait for the situation to be perfect. Like, if it's good enough, just do it. You can always improve as you go along. You don't become, you don't have a six-pack abs the first day you go to the gym, but you have to get your butt to the gym the first time and start getting used to it. So I think it's a mindset. That my situation combined with my mindset allowed me to really create a success against all odds. Because when you look at statistics, very few entrepreneurs will hit it out of the park in their career. You and I are involved with a lot of entrepreneurs, so we see that success up close as part of our, but it's really a fraction of, I think there's 500,000 businesses created every year in America, and less than 1% will ever hit $10 million in revenue. So the odds are really stacked against us. And when you start out with nothing, without an education, without money, without a green card, I mean, it's really stacked against you. So it does require some strong mindset or youth, as I call it.
Yeah, you don't want
Yeah.
to be doing all this today. Good thing we were
When
young.
you're young, you're like taking more risks. You don't think as much before you act. As you get older, you become a little bit more cautious, you know.
Yeah, I learned
But
that the male brain doesn't really have all like its full synaptic connections until 25 and after. So imagine we'll take that risk when we're young. We'll jump off that building. We'll invest money where we don't have it. So something that comes up occasionally with entrepreneurs is that I hear that I don't know what it means. I really don't. Is the fear of success. You have any thoughts around that? Why people do not get to the next level or they don't push themselves because they have a fear of
yeah, I think
success?
uh, I think a lot of I think a lot of people have self-worth issues. I know I did, and I know that uh, many times I felt I didn't deserve. I wasn't deserving of my success because I had low self-worth, which is not the same as self-esteem. As I was building the art of shaving, my self-esteem was very high. I was experiencing success. I had a successful relationship. I had a successful business. My employees liked working for me. I felt good about myself, but deep down, my self-worth was very low. I didn't feel worthy of love. I didn't feel worthy of success. I didn't feel worthy of luck. I had to push through all these things, right? So I think that could be part of the issue. Frankly, I haven't heard many people speak about fear of success. But if I had to define it for myself, I did experience that at times, especially when I was in the process of selling my business for, a huge amount of money, overwhelming amount, and felt that it couldn't happen to a guy like me.
Mhm.
It couldn't happen to me.
Yeah, you
This
don't
could not
deserve
be
it.
happening.
Does
It,
that
well,
then that sounds a lot like imposter syndrome, right?
yeah, 100%.
Wait till they find out I'm just a regular
Well,
dude.
imposter syndrome, I'm still experiencing every day, especially as I'm writing my book. you know,
Let's talk about that
imposter
book.
syndrome.
So why you don't have to work, you don't have to worry about money, you've built wealth, you've invested well. What's the book about? Why did you write this?
I've had a feeling since selling my business, I've had a really, really strong feeling about helping. I've always loved helping. It's like something that I've always been helpful to others in any way I can, whenever I can. And I really feel good about that. But it's not until after I sold my business and I started to really think about what I wanted to do and, who I was and what was my next chapter. Because, when you sell your business, you basically not only lose a job, you lose everything as far
Identity.
as professionally, you lose everything. Fortunately, I didn't lose identity
No.
personally. I think my wife did because she was, more emotionally tied to the business. I saw it as just a means to an end. Um, But, in the last few years, and I think, you're a prime example of that when you came years ago and asked me if I wanted to mentor you. And I said, hell yeah. I love helping the next generation. I feel it's almost a duty for people in our age group that have succeeded. I think you're doing an incredible job right now at doing that. Um, to serve a little bit, to be useful to others in the sense that we can transmit a lot of our experience to the next generation. It's what I call on my website, our tagline is empowering tomorrow's entrepreneurs. That's what I do. And the way I do that is by mentoring, investing in entrepreneurs, and writing this book or speaking in public. I mean, those are all the methods I'm trying to use to reach tomorrow's entrepreneurs and try to be useful to them.
And in this book, you tell I have not read it yet. Do you tell, I'm imagining, your story? And what are some of the
Yes.
lessons that are coming out after reading the book?
So the book is basically a business life memoir with all the lessons and that I've learned along the way. So I weave all of my lessons through each chapter and through each story. Um, Hopefully, I haven't forgotten too many of the lessons, but I try to. I mean, the real takeaway. I hope the takeaway from the book will be. I didn't want this book to be. Look at me. Look at what I've done. Look how great I am. Right, which I think is a lot of business books are like that. Um, I wanted it to be something that can increase the odds of success for the entrepreneur who reads this because the odds are so low. If I can increase the odds from 0.72 to 5%, I mean, that's humongous. So that was my goal when writing this book is I want this to be a roadmap to help entrepreneurs avoid the pitfalls because in my 40-year career, I've met a lot of smart entrepreneurs who had good ideas, interesting businesses, and eventually failed. And I've always asked myself, why? And what I what I what I realized is that the reason why I succeeded is because I avoided a lot of these mistakes through either luck, good instincts, or sheer carefulness about
What type of
what I was doing.
mistakes? What type of mistakes are these people making?
So in my book, I talk about a lot of the type of mistakes I talk about are mistakes that I've made in the past and even in the present of um, starting too big. When we try to go too fast, I compare it to a child. If a 6-month-old tries to run, you know what happens, or even a 2-year-old. So it's called um, think big, have a clear vision that can really go far, but start really small. Take baby steps in the beginning. I think if you try to get ahead of yourself, because as entrepreneurs, we're always impatient, and impatience is a huge, huge pitfall. I think Bruce Lee says it best that impatience is not being passive. Impatience is actually an active process of controlling yourself and your impulses. I'm a huge sense of urgency guy. I'm extremely impatient, and I'm learning through meditation and through wisdom and age, just slowing down to just um, exercise patience. My business took 9 years to get from 0 to 10 million, and then it took another 9 years to get to 100 million. So when you study exponential curves, they don't start from day one. They don't go straight line. They go pretty low and then they go up. It's a hockey stick. It's a principle I try to teach called crawl, walk, run, and fly. And you don't have to spend years in each of those stages, but you do have to respect their order. You try to fly before you run or run before you walk, you're going to fail. you're gonna fall flat on your face.
Yeah, you see that a
Um,
lot. So
a huge pitfall. I'm just gonna say this because I think this is something I've been experiencing lately with entrepreneurs I advise is when you go out to raise money, there's huge pitfalls around that. People sign any documents, and if they happen to be very successful, they regret what they've signed.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of stuff in there about life, about health. You know, you're a big health advocate, as I am. Health is wealth, and I put a lot in my book about mental health and physical health to become a more powerful entrepreneur. So, and then enjoying it. You know, when you come out the other side, you may have more time to enjoy that success.
Yeah, and I
As
have notes here, and I want to touch on those as well. The stuff that you just mentioned, but give me some traits of entrepreneurs. You don't have to say their name, who you advise and you invest in their companies, where you go, this guy or this gal, they're gonna make it. What are those traits? What do they got that the other 99%
well,
don't?
first of all, you know, if I even see a shred of ego, I mean, if I see a shred of ego or pride, uh, you should have a lot of dignity. But you know, ego is a major red flag right off the bat. People have to be coachable. If they're not open-minded, usually everything is uh, comes back to ego. You know, if they argue with you when you're giving them sound advice, you know, that's a waste of my
I
time.
like to call those the
Uh,
yeah buts. When you give them good
yeah,
advice,
but
and it's yeah, but that won't work because, and they have 20 of those in a row.
exactly, yeah, but you know, I'm not going to waste my time. Um, I'm a sucker for the underdog, frankly, so I do get a little bit of leeway there. Um, but yeah, what I'm looking for are people that have the ability to execute. Um, a lot of time we don't know what to do, but if we have someone sitting on our shoulders helping us think through, um, I think the reason, you know, the traits that I had in me, fortunately, that helped me to be successful were grit, um, prudence, and timing. Um, those were three traits that I'm very proud about, and that really were the differentiator for me to succeed.
And those work together.
Um,
If you don't have the grit to continue and the timing comes up, but you didn't have the grit, you quit already, you wouldn't have it.
but prudence is the one word that's really not talked about enough. I think a lot of people confuse prudence for risk aversion. People think that prudence is kind of the coward word, and it's not. You know, the prudent soldier wins the war and comes home to his family. The overconfident soldier gets killed first. The scared soldier gets killed second. I always talk about that prudent. He's the guy that knows what he has to do. He's moving cautiously. He's using, you know, stress and you know, he's making as good decision as he can. He's keeping his stress level down so that his cognitive mindset, his decision making abilities are at the highest level that he can have. So for me, prudence has always been um, a real a really important factor in my success. You know, even though I always shot from the hips, like many entrepreneurs, I was really careful about my decision making process.
And
Because
with
too
time
many,
comes wisdom, and with wisdom, you've probably gotten better at that.
I think so because methodology allows you to make better decisions or at least minimize the number of bad decisions you'll make. You'll make bad decisions. The question is how many. You know, I compare this to tennis, which is a sport I played. And I was always told we play tennis the way we play life. And as I look back on it, I say that business is like tennis. You know, the guy who wins the championship is the guy who had the least amount of unforced errors, not the guy who had the most winners or more aces or more points or more games. He had the least amount of errors. And the biggest problem I see with entrepreneurs is they make so many bad decisions along the way that eventually they dig themselves into a hole they can't get out of.
Yeah. So I don't know if you were always this way, but I know you and you're a very healthy person. You eat healthy, you steadily work out. First of all, what are some of the things that you do, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, that you would say help you in your physical and mental health?
Well, it's simple, man. It's nutrition. I mean, what goes into your mouth is number one cause of concern for health. Health, starts there. The brain, so meditation, relaxation is key to having, if you have stress, it doesn't matter if you're eating cabbage all day long, you're gonna die sooner than you want to. And moving, you got to move your body. When I park my car, I go down the stairs or go up the stairs. I don't take the elevator. I go to the gym as many times as I can. I walk around. I do anything physical. When boxes are delivered to my house, I'm the one picking them up, taking them upstairs to the thing. Yesterday I lifted a mattress for my son, 150-pound mattress with the help of one of his buddies. I'm always raising my hand. Any physical activity is, I'd rather do that than go to the gym, frankly. I do go to the gym, but I'd rather, I go boating, I go swimming. I'm on vacation every day. I'm hiking, I'm walking, I'm swimming, I'm anything I can do to move my body, keep it healthy, minimize the calories that I intake, and make sure those calories are healthy calories, and meditate every day of as many mornings as I can to keep my mind in a relaxed place. My immune system and my nervous system, I try to keep clean.
Those are some of the things I've learned from you. And one of those primary ones is meditation. I never did it much before I met you, but you tied it to real life about making good decisions when your executive brain is in control and not your that dinosaur brain, right? That reacts.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
happens when we accustom ourselves to acting that way. And you see some entrepreneurs, most of the ones that will listen to this are entrepreneurs. They are they love it. They love that deadline. They love that stress, but ultimately, I think that's killing us, right?
yeah. Not only is it killing us, but the intangible, which I cannot explain, and I perform. I do a meditation called TM, Transcendental Meditation, which I started to do about 12 months ago. And I used to meditate here and there with guided meditation, but really, I noticed it was relaxing, but it never really did anything for me. Since I started TM 12 months ago, I kid you not, I'm more relaxed and I'm much more productive. I'm 100 times more productive in the last 12 months than I was the 12 months before that.
Mm.
And my decision making abilities has gotten better. I mean, I've been thinking about writing this book for 10 years. A month into my TM meditation, it just flowed out from my brain. In 3 weeks, I wrote this book. I mean, it took me months and months to refine it, but it was almost transcendent. The way that book came into my mind. I was always thinking about writing it, but I didn't know where to start and what to say. And a month after starting to meditate, all of a sudden, my wife was complaining for about a month. She was like, "You're always on your laptop." I was like, I can't help it. I'm so creative right now. It's just flowing and I need to type as fast as I can get it. Um, Maybe the book will be bad and that will explain why. I wrote it in 3 weeks. Or maybe, the book will be great and I'll think it's a divine intervention or something like
Well, it
that.
sounds like
But
that transcendental meditation maybe opened up some pathways, maybe took
that's
out
right.
some blocks.
That's right. Not only that, but in many areas of my life, my relationship with my wife is so much better than it was. We've always had a good relationship, but it's so much better because I'm better. As the way we show up is the way we experience everything.
And you can't
So
control her, you can control you. And if you make yourself better, you're showing up better, then she's probably going to be better.
yeah, I can't control her, that's for sure. But no, just
So,
kidding.
tell me about your stress levels when you were grinding and getting that shop going. even after Procter and Gamble, compared to today. What's life like today? What's stress like today?
Well, I have teenage kids, though, so teenagers,
Yep.
they'll you have to have a strong body and a strong mind to raise teenagers in Miami.
Yep.
So yeah, I need to meditate um, daily for that. Um, Stress is different today because you can't help what goes into your brain. What you can help with is how you manage those thoughts. When my fears come up now, it's what I do with those thoughts that has changed. In the past, I was taken, I would become overwhelmed, I could become sad or angry or whatever emotion those feelings were, which are usually anxiety for the future. And today I try to really get myself centered. That's the training, right? The brain is a muscle, and meditation trains you to bring it back to now. That's all it does. It's a training that as your mind for 20 minutes is starting to think about something, you remind it to come back. It's like push ups. And the more you do them, the stronger you get. And that's how I'm trying to deal with my stress. Now, I'm not a yogi. I'm not perfect. I get mad. I get scared. I get sad. I have all the emotions, but I'm happier than I've ever been. And nothing has really changed in the last year, right? Nothing.
What?
I can't say anything new has happened.
Sure. So this is, imagine you're someone listening to this with a business and they're doing okay. They're making a couple $100,000 a year and they grew up with nothing. So they're doing pretty well. But occasionally they might stop and fantasize. Can you imagine having Eric Malka type money? And we don't need to know how much money you have at all. But what is it like to wake up in
All
the morning?
relative.
Yeah, it's all relative. And we get used to everything. And now all the
Like
zeros.
when when you're on your boat, you
Yeah.
think you see a little boat, you think you're a big shot, and then you look to the other side, you see a much bigger boat, you think you're losing.
Yeah, it's a
You
moving
can't you
target.
can't compare yourself to
Right. It's a
anyone.
moving target. But when we can use ourselves as a reference point, our past, and we can say, I had nothing. And now look at all the stuff I have. And I don't just mean material things, but the security, money in the bank, investments that are doing well. Just humor us. What's it like for that guy or that girl who just dreams of one day making it? What does it feel like in the morning when you get up, Mr. Eric
For
Malka?
me,
Yeah.
listen, everybody's human, and our experience happens between our two ears. Perception is reality. And if you feel you're rich, you're rich. If you feel you're not rich enough, you're not rich enough. If you feel it's really our inner dialogue. It's been scientifically proven that even if, after you're able to uh, take care of your life expenses, happiness is just incremental. The greatest, I think the greatest thing about having financial freedom, I would say, because it's not a number, right? It's financial freedom. It's not worrying about money. Is really freedom. It's all about freedom. That's that. When I wake up in the morning, for me, it's all about gratefulness. And I think gratefulness is something I see in my housekeeper who has very little in life, but she's grateful. She sings while she cleans the house and she's happy. You can't be happy if you're not grateful. And, it's hard to be grateful when you're in a horrible situation, right? But if you have enough to live on, you can be grateful for that. You have more than a lot of people on earth. And I think it's all about that. It's about really being grateful. I think it's the hardest thing to teach our kids nowadays, gratefulness. I think you're doing a better job than most of us. But what I would say about the entrepreneur that's comparing themselves or fantasizing, fantasizing is not going to help you. Fantasizing is going to make you feel bad. It's social media in your head, right? Um, I think what's really important is to be honest with yourself which is the contrary of fantasy. And it starts with asking yourself the question, what do I want? If you want to become a multimillionaire, there's a price to pay for that. It's not, I mean, you could win the lottery, it happens. I mean, the odds are very, very slim. But I had to, since I was 16 years old, I've been working my ass off. And I didn't go on backpacking trip in Europe in my late teens. I didn't party in my 20s. I did a little bit of that. But, you know, I had to sacrifice a lot of things. I was obsessed with success and I was lucky enough to get out on the other side. A lot of people keep trucking along their whole life and not get there. So it's really about what do you want? There's nothing wrong with wanting a little bit or a lot. What's wrong is doing things that you don't want or doing things for the wrong reasons. So I always start mentoring people by really trying to get to the bottom of what they want. And if they say I want to build $1 billion business, I'm going to try to help them understand what that might take. Not that I've done it, but that takes something else than opening a mom and pop business that gives you a good lifestyle and financial means. So
You
it
know,
really starts with that.
I talked to an entrepreneur, very successful, and she told me that she wanted to exit for $100 million, and that number was not negotiable. She told me, which to me immediately, the flag for me that I saw was an ego flag, like that. I just have to hit that 100. Well, believe it or not, we spoke for about 45 minutes. By the end of the call, when I explained to her what I thought she was going to have to sacrifice in her life, she cut it in half. So I got her down to 50 million. Because with that big of a goal, sure, you might be able to hit it, but that's going to require, like you said, a lot of sacrifices. So
Yeah.
we are both fathers. You've got two teenage boys. Tell us about what fatherhood's like for you.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, my dad was not around. He's around the earth. We have a relationship, but he was really not a hands-on dad. Gambling, womenizing. He had some of the uh, what they used to call normal male,
Right.
flaws in the old days. Now they're frowned upon, but it was kind of normal,
Yeah.
back then.
The good
Um,
old days.
the good old, no, I'm just kidding. But from a standpoint of our relationship, he was not really there for me emotionally. He was not available. I'm not angry at him because I understand where he comes from and his life experience. He was just not available for me as a dad, and that left a big gap in my life. It was also a driver, as you know. So I had my kids. I'm a planner, and I plan to have my kids when I sell my business. So I missed it by 3 months. He was supposed to be born, I was supposed to sell my business before he was born, but it was delayed. And he was 3 months old when I sold the business. The second one was born 3 days after we left the business. So for me, it was, I'm not a religious guy, but I felt the universe had dealt me a hand that I couldn't refuse. One to, I had nothing to worry about in this world. I didn't have a job, and I had two babies. So I've always wanted to be a hands-on dad. I didn't want to be the kind of father my father was. Not judging him, it's just that's not what I wanted to be. So I became, very involved with my kids. I spent their formative years. My wife and I actually, we were at-home parents, which is a unique situation. We neither of us had a serious occupation. We stayed busy, but the kids never saw that for the first 10 years of their lives. Um, so we were very, very. The flip side of that is they're sick of seeing us.
Yeah. It's too much.
They take us for granted because they've gotten. I think we overkilled, but we have. I think I'm hoping that one day I'll see that fingerprint on their life of what I was able to impact them by my presence and our obviously our love, but just being a tight family unit.
You know,
So
my
I don't know if that answers your
Yeah,
question, but that's
it's funny. You made me think. My kids once, they got so used to me being home and available 100% of the time because I got to the point when I hit a certain figure in income where I said I'm going to work a lot less, and I got myself down to 4 hours a week, and it was an occasional visit to my office or warehouse, and then a couple of phone calls a day, and that was it. So I was always available, and I would do a lot of that while they were at school. So I'd walk them to the school bus
yeah.
right down the street. I'd pick them up with my wife. We'd do everything together. We'd take them out, all the sports. And then I started mentoring and coaching. And I don't know, let's call it working 18 to 20 hours a week. And my kids, one of them said, "You are always on the phone. You're never available." And I look at the other one and go, "Is that true?" They go, "Yeah, it's true. You're always working." I go, "You guys don't understand what it is to work 40, 60, 80 hours a week. You've got a dad who's maybe working 20 hours a week." They take it for granted when they don't know, they don't have a reference point. All right, I want to ask you about two things. Number one, you have a very specific way of investing, and I want to hear what you look at, what type of businesses, and then you just tell us where we can buy the book. So your investments, what's your strategy there, and how do you do that?
Well, first of all, I'm an investor, not a speculator. I do speculate in with a small portion of my assets, but most of my assets are very conservatively invested for the very, very long term, diversified portfolio in low cost, uh, tax efficient vehicles like ETFs, bonds, mix of bonds and ETFs, real estate investments, spread out over, the world. Probably a bigger portion of my portfolio is in the USA, but I invest in Asia and Europe. That's, I think financial freedom for me, or the definition is that the returns of your investments cover your living expenses. You don't have to worry about having a job or an income. It's there, and that's the bulk of my investments are built for that.
How about the
And
companies,
then
the individuals that you invest in? What type of
yeah,
companies do
so
they
I
operate?
take about 10% of my assets, and that's my play money. That's what I do for fun. I invest in companies. That strategic brand investment platform is my private equity platform, where I invest in young entrepreneurial brands in my field, companies that I know and understand, and I can impact through my connections, through my experience, or so I do that. Um, and that's what I do in my free time. So I think we have about 7 or 8 brands in our portfolio, past, present, and current, and future. I mean, and I'm looking to expand that. Part of also writing the book, because it's okay to do good for others while you're doing well for yourself, right? There's nothing wrong with those two coexisting. So the doing well for myself, the reason for writing the book is to develop my strategic brand investment platform to attract more entrepreneurs that we can invest in.
So strategicbrandinvestment.com, right?
It's plural.
So
Strategic brand
strategicbrandinvestment.com.
investments. It's a little long, but it's easy words to
Yep.
remember. Brand
Yep.
investments.
So if
Uh,
anyone,
strategicbrandinvestments.com. You can also buy the book on our website. Or you can buy them on Amazon or in bookstores around the
the,
country.
the Razor's Edge, Eric Malka,
On the Razor's Edge, yeah,
on the
on the
Razor's
Razor's
Edge.
Edge. But yeah,
That's right.
I'm sure you'll get it.
Yeah, it's early
If
on,
it's
so I
not a
don't have a
movie,
copy.
yeah, that's right.
Will it be on
You
Audible?
will. It will be on Audible. I haven't done the Audible yet. I'm thinking big, starting small, taking my own advice. I'm launching the book, see if nobody laughs at me, and then nobody's laughing me
Yeah, and then see if
about
it's
the
worth
book.
recording. Sure.
I'll record it.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. It's funny because I know you so well, and just having this conversation expands on that. And it even started putting in my mind some young, successful entrepreneurs that I'd like to introduce you to because I think there. So I'll message you after this.
You have introduced me recently to, in the last year, you've introduced me to one of your mentee, and that's been a really good
Yeah,
experience
one
for,
of the
I think,
guys in the
both of
Brotherhood.
us.
That's right.
He was
Yeah,
definitely running before he walked, and we
yeah,
were trying to get him back on track.
yeah. And I'm sure you will. All right. Mr. Eric Malka on the Razor's Edge, strategicbrandinvestments.com. Thank you for being here with me. I think you're going to bring a lot of value to everybody who listens to this, and you've brought tremendous value in my life for years, and I look forward to many more decades of that. So thanks, Eric.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me and appreciate you, man.
Thank you.